So, warm welcome again. This is Inner Fitness, and our topic today is stamina. So, we'll get into that a little bit more after we start with a reflection. As I sit here, I reflect on what spirituality really is and what it has to do with my day to day life. Spirituality has been used interchangeably with the word purity. And purity, when something is pure, it's of the highest quality, which means spirituality has to do with quality of life. Everything to do with my life. And spirituality is about finding that balance, that integrated state of quality and quantity, of being and doing. As I sit here, I start to feel myself slowing down and calming down inside. I'm not really performing any tasks or coming into too much activity. And so it's easier to feel a sense of stillness, that calm, that peace. Just as long as I don't move, there's the experience of the quality of peace. And that affirms for me that I do have this capacity for peace. But now the question is, can I maintain that inner stillness, that inner calm, as I come into action and sound, as I interact, whatever is going on, whatever people are doing? Even if facing what seems like a challenge, even in the face of physical discomfort, can I sustain, stay connected to that inner peace and calm? That is spirituality. And that's what gives me the power, the energy to sustain quality of life. Om Shanti. So, our topic again today is stamina. And we always like to start maybe on the physical level, although stamina is also applied to mental stamina. So, taking a moment for yourself, just thinking on the physical or perhaps external level, what this word stamina means to you, what kind of ideas it conjures up as you think about stamina in a physical sense. And if you have any thoughts to share, what stamina means for you, you can either speak them by unmuting or type in the chat box.
The first thought, for some reason, it seems like it's connected to endurance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely endurance. And it's been shared maximum weight, mental or physical, before you reach your breaking point. Great. Thank you. So that's connected to an idea of resilience as well. I think the technical definition has been very similar to what has been shared, but being able to maintain a certain exertion over a period of time. And that can be physical, it can be mental, and often the idea of in the face of difficulty. So a triathlon is a classic idea. And I remember I was always physically involved with what we call more anaerobic pursuits. I know that sounds shocking, but in dance, it was quite anaerobic. You'd have these bursts of high level energy, and then you'd kind of try to quickly recover, and then another burst, these little sprints. And when it got to the point of looking for work in my late teens, aerobics was just starting really in Calgary. And so I applied for a job. Many dancers did. And I remember I knew that it was going to be a test of stamina because I knew that I was mostly anaerobic and did not have much aerobic capacity. So I knew it was going to be painful. I didn't know how painful it was going to be. It was very painful. I had to audition to teach and had to take an aerobics class. And this idea of aerobics is being able to sustain exertion over a period of time, 30, 45 minutes. And it was very, very painful. And I realized I had very little stamina, physically speaking. And so I actually started to think of ways that I could increase my stamina. Swimming was one way because it, again, challenges the aerobic capacity as well as some other things, a lot of resistance. But really, it was just a matter of constantly throwing myself into an aerobics class until I started to feel the capacity building. And often, I mean, it hasn't happened this year, but I would go to the spiritual headquarters in Madhuban for 3 weeks, if you will. No real aerobic activity. And I always would know coming back, the first few weeks would be painful. Again, just rebuilding that stamina. And it was very interesting. I was having a conversation, converting a little bit over to the spiritual or just day-to-day life, a conversation earlier with the soul, and just asking how they were doing. And you could sort of tell, and it's actually a feeling I think that's many have picked up in the atmosphere. You know, they sort of said, okay. And you could tell that soul's stamina is really waning at this point, that they're kind of losing steam. That is enthusiasm, positivity, optimism. These signs of spiritual stamina are kind of so more susceptible to the force of the challenges coming at them. And it was quite an interesting conversation. I was just sharing, I sort of felt in general that people were kind of losing steam. You know, this has been a marathon. And, you know, as I was driving, I thought it's kind of interesting because we still have food, we still have water, we still have shelter, we still have electricity. You know, we really, it's not like we're survival mode here. And yet it's very much wearing on souls, which speaks to how much we are beyond the physical. And what is it exactly that's draining souls? They're not feeling that quality of life. It's just something to reflect on when we're still very comfortable, quite frankly. My goodness, it could be so much more intense if any of those were gone. They're not. So what exactly is going on? And it's really what's going on inside our head. It's amazing how we can either, you know, really fill ourselves with enthusiasm or make ourselves very heavy. Yes, things are happening outside, but the responses, that's all going on inside. And I know when speaking about a marathon runner or when I was trying to build up my stamina to last a period of time, it was so much about the dialogue in my head. You know, this real capacity to, or will, which often spirit and will are used interchangeably with this capacity, because again, the only way I'm going to improve my stamina is, or increase my capacity, is how I respond to challenges. It's such a thing in the head to keep increasing the capacity. And so really having to explore what happens in our head. And I know that a lot of what is happening in the heads of souls right now is very much externally focused. There really isn't a lot of attention on what's going on inside of our head, or at least there's a lot of reactivity. And there was a line in class this morning that really, really stayed with me. And it was, you have to control yourself. That is, I mean, it sounds like it's straight out of the Gita, but that is such a powerful line. You have to control yourself. And of course, we're not talking in a violent way. You know, what needs to line up? What kind of understanding do I need to have such that I'm responding to things and also being proactive in order to increase my capacity, spiritual capacity, because again, spirituality means quality of life. So if I still think, again, we've got all the necessities, we're not in any hardship here. So if I had thought quality of life was physical things, then it makes no sense that souls would be affected. So how am I responding to these challenges? You have to control yourself. And again, no violence. Hema has a question, or Hema's raising her hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, Om Shanti Judy Ben. I
Mm.
mean, the way I feel lately is just like the situation is getting like having control over us, right? More and more
Mhm,
so. So
mhm,
earlier, like that, that's how I feel, right? I could be completely wrong, but v- we were anyways feelings as a prisoner
mm,
from within, right? Because we didn't have any control over many of the things, such as like thoughts and like,
mm,
the we didn't have any control inside. So
mhm,
we are being controlled from inside. Now there
mhm,
is a external control imposed on us as well, right? As a result of
mm,
COVID. So like we really feel like this, the soul really feel like they are completely in a prison and they
mm,
cannot breathe. That's how they feel like. That's how
mm,
my feeling is. Like
mm,
it's like breathless, right? And that's why it's so much draining. And lately that's
mm,
my experience. And
mhm,
then that's what I was telling Baba all the time, that Baba, I really want to get liberated from this cage, when I will be able to fly like a bird, right?
mm,
So it's just the internal feeling, but I mean,
mhm,
I can resonate with what you are saying completely, because
mhm,
6 weeks in a bed and all, like
mm.
I can imagine it was something, right? So yeah, it's just like we
Yes.
are being controlled. That's how I feel. Like we were not
Yes.
controlling. We didn't control,
Yeah.
as you said, that we could not control anything, right? Because
Right.
the essence is like I should be able to control, at least if not outside situations, but at least my inside world, right? Outside world, I cannot control, but inside. But right now, that's not how it works, and that's why
Mm,
it's very draining on a soul, actually.
Thank you, Hema.
Thank you.
Interesting how your sharing started, because that's really, I was thinking that during the conversation I was having with the soul, sort of where it ended was that this period of time has, for me, I've learned a lot about myself. It's revealed to me a lot about myself. And one of the things which you just pointed out was, we didn't, before any of this happened, perhaps we did not have control over ourselves. So it's only going to be heightened. So it's really just revealing to ourselves that we didn't have any control, and it's just being intensified. Because if you just are sitting there now, and how often have you found that your mood, your thoughts, your attitudes are affected by even the smallest things, something someone said, something someone did, and it shapes how you think and feel. If anything has stamina, if anything can stick around a long time, it's a reaction. So someone says something, and years later, I'm still thinking about it. So that happened well before any pandemic that was going on.
It's true.
And yeah, no. So I think it's just again being deeply this backdrop is sort of revealing it more so to myself. I know for me that, and I've shared this before, that my first, I think, conscious exposure to spirituality in my teens perhaps was exposed. I didn't know what was going on, but my first conscious exposure to spirituality, which I've shared on occasions before, was coming across this book by a soul named Viktor Frankl, um, Quest for the Meaning of Life. And these realizations that he made whilst in a very controlled situation. It was a concentration camp. So one could say he had no control. But what he was exploring in that situation was the control he did have. And of course, that is our inner capacities, that in a situation, this is the essence of spirituality. It's saying quality of life doesn't happen out there trying to control things out there, because yes, if that is my feeling, then as that control out there is taken away, I will feel my quality of life is going as well. If I am reacting to things, then yes, my quality of life is controlled out there. But what he was exploring is in the situation where there was seeming loss of control, he was discovering his inner self-control, this inner capacity to determine his quality of life. That touched me very deeply when I read it, and really, I felt, okay, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. That is the secret of life. That is, this idea of being able to sustain quality even in outer changes, delicate times of transformation. And yeah, I mean, you've been dealing with a big one, Hema, times of pain, being able to maintain that inner control of the self. And again, not with violence. It's like a power. And this brings us to stamina. It always intrigued me. I was never.
And
Yes, go ahead, Hema.
And also, Judyban, with the pain, like what happens because the level of activity has gone down to almost zero, the energy level has gone down so much.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and I'm getting better since last 1 week, but like
Mhm.
5 weeks was really, really tough. And I was
Mhm.
wondering, like, I felt like I was 10, 15 years older than my age. And I had to
Mhm.
call my doctor office that what's going on because I feel super, super weak. I
Yeah.
never felt so weak. And then doctor office asked me like, what is your level of activity? And I said,
Mhm.
next to none. And then
Mhm.
they said, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think in spirituality as well, that's what we need, right?
Yeah.
Because like when I feel spiritually weak, it's just my level of activity,
Mhm.
like my engagement into more pure and positive kind of thoughts and all
Yeah.
must be very minimum, right?
Yeah. No, you've really, for me, hit one of the main pieces, nail on the head. What we were chatting about on the physical level, it becomes a bit of a downward spiral, and I can feel that happening. The facility where I am involved. What we've discovered that it's been very interesting. It requires being so proactive and a lot of self-efficacy and self-directedness, and yes, a lot of control of the thoughts in the head. Oh, I don't think I want to do it today. It's like, okay, I have to do it today because I understand the consequences. It's getting into the slippery slope. So when this happened, I was given opportunities, and souls are given opportunities. And then the question is, do I take the opportunity? And I really felt I have to take the opportunity. I can see where this is going to go if I don't take the opportunity. So I was given the opportunity to stay very involved, very active, all volunteer. I didn't care because I was getting a lot out of it in terms of keeping myself active. This is a physical example. And what we've discovered, it's interesting you brought up, Hema, what we've discovered as a metaphor is that in this period now that's been going on for a while, I think we're down to, at the beginning, there was quite a bit of the membership that was staying engaged and active online. It is now down, we think, to about 10% of the membership that is still active and engaged online. You can literally feel them floating away.
Oh.
That their head is just having them float away. And the more
Mm.
you float away, the harder it is to, you really have to stay on top of it. And that's a physical example. It's very interesting you bring it up because this is exactly what I was talking about with the soul. And I said, I feel so lucky spiritually because I don't like it. I will be honest. I don't like it when people, I feel quite frankly, not kind of bad when people come up to me and say, I know you're busy, but because I don't want to make souls feel like, yes, there's a lot going on, but no. But I just said, I feel really lucky. I feel really lucky. I've been kept busy spiritually, kept very busy. Again, there are opportunities, and I had to say yes, knowing how important that was to, oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there's a note for you, Hema, from Raj.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
sweet.
Thank you, Raj.
So
Oh,
it is
oh,
very
thank you.
sweet. Hopefully you caught that. I think I
Thank you.
just
Yeah.
revealed it to the
Oh,
whole world.
thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Doesn't that give you a lift? That's sweet. Anyways, but yeah, so physically it can happen, which means it can happen mentally, it can happen nutritionally, and it can certainly happen spiritually. So it's an interesting thing when one starts to kind of lose steam and they don't kind of do something about it pretty soon, because it will just kind of spiral down and it will become more and more challenging to rev it back up again. It's the law of entropy, and we just kind of slip down that slippery slope. So really feeling lucky to be active spiritually. And others might be, you know what, there's too much going on. It's like, okay, I'm glad there's a lot going on. I'm glad that there's that support, that engagement. But even if there wasn't, I would have to in some way find a way to stay spiritually active. And it's been very interesting because with a lot being online like we're doing now, it might seem like I'm spiritually engaged, but I can still be very passive even in this. I can listen a lot, but I actually want to practice and work with these things, right? It's a bit like we laugh sometimes when we're doing the online workouts. Before, now it's a bit more difficult to hide, but before, when it was, say, on YouTube, we were positive that people were just watching while sitting on their couch. They were just watching us sweat while they were sitting on their couch. And, that's not really going to work in terms of getting those benefits. And the same thing can happen. It's very incognito. The same thing can happen spiritually. But I'm kind of a passive witness. Someone else is spiritually working. They're delivering a talk or whatever. And I'm kind of passive in this. And so I have to check that I'm chewing and practicing and applying so that I keep myself in that upward spiral. I don't let the energy around me affect me, but I have to be very proactive, very, very. And one of the things that I've done, I know with physical stamina, the one thing that was really staying with me when I was thinking about this. I remember watching marathon runners, and it was interesting because I was more of a short sprint. And yes, short sprint, you also have to be there's a lot of self-control in both endeavors, but this strong outburst, it's quite a power. There's a lot of range of motion, a lot of activity. It still has to be very well controlled. But I remember I used to watch marathon runners, and I was always challenged by this because I would run like a sprinter. And of course, I'd run out of energy. That marathon runners are extremely efficient in their gait. There is so little energy. They're very good at their energy management. Very, very good. Whereas I'm just like loping and then I die. But they're I always was intrigued by that. I was aware they're doing something different there. And so this incredible energy management, they're very essence-full in their movements. And this to me is the secret of stamina, is this incredible energy management. And that's really, really relevant when we're talking about spirituality. When I was talking to the soul on her own, one of the things she said, yeah, no, I need to listen to the news less. And it goes far deeper than that. I actually need to think less if I'm going to stay light. I need to really look at my energy management. It was very interesting. We had a class earlier and it looked at these capacities of the soul, the mind, the capacity to think, the intellect, the capacity to remember, make decisions, the sanskars, the capacity to express, the light, our purity, and energy. And I remember listening to it, I thought, energy is all of them. They all affect the energy of the soul. And science has even shown that when we are angry or hurt or upset, this takes out a huge amount of energy, the amount of thinking going on, the amount of emotional expression going on, which is mostly imploding, of course, but it's taking a lot of my energy. And so I will drop very quickly. And so this energy management that has to, it's a funny thing, stamina is about sustaining energy over an extended period of time. So you would think, wow, they have a massive amount of energy, more than the normal person. Perhaps that's so, but I also feel that how they manage that energy over time. And when I look at the original students of this organization, you know, 8 decades later, and they're still going strong. If they're still with us, they're still going strong. I always would think, wow, you know, the same enthusiasm, the same lightness, you know, and I think about everything they've done over those decades. They've done so much, like so much output. And yes, they would say, it is my link to God. That's my fuel. And it's true. I can have a link and get fuel, but I can also leak. And so they really are good at both the link and not leaking. They're getting energy, and yes, they're sharing the energy. That's different than leaking. So they will say, yes, the more I share what I receive, then yes, my own stock multiplies. So that's very good. They're increasing their energy. But leaking is different. And this is where our management kind of goes sideways, is when our energy leaks out, when our stamina, we start to drop and get heavy and start to spiral. So what is it for my energy? What does it mean when my energy is leaking out? Spiritually speaking, how does my energy leak out? What causes leakage?
It's wasting thoughts. When you're wasting thoughts, then you're leaking your power.
Thanks, Raj. Yeah, waste thoughts. And what are waste thoughts?
Thinking about past, thinking about future, thinking about things which you have no control over.
Right.
Getting angry with people.
I know you're talking theoretically now, right? You've never experienced this. Right. So worries, regrets, critical thought, reactivity, all of these things, waste. Waste is inefficient use of my energy. Daddy Genki used to say, don't think. And of course, we can't stop thinking. Overthinking. Thank you, Hema. Another way that we leak is overthinking. And this thinking in sort of this wasteful way is really leaking our energy. And if there's one thing I've felt, yes, one thing is to not listen to news, because it's good to be informed. We're not saying to not be informed. I need to be informed. But when it's feeding these thoughts of worry and distress, how much do I need to take in to be informed? When have I gone over that line? And now I'm just distressing myself. So when it's feeding these kinds of thoughts, then I'm actually leaking my energy out. And very often we find, there was a point this morning when I was thinking about the question of, yeah, it's we know what we need to do, but when it's actually happening, when I'm actually upset or worried or regretting, when it's actually happening, it's actually a challenge at that time to right the ship. It really catches us. And so what do I need to do to be able to right the ship when there's a hole in the boat? What do I need to do? Any thoughts? When you're actually caught in a thought, a train of thought that's causing leakage.
So, sorry, could you repeat, Judy Ben, please?
Hmm?
Could you please repeat? Sorry.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I had, as we're, we can talk theoretically that I need not to not engage in these thoughts that cause leakage. But when I start to actually, when I'm actually affected by something, and especially emotionally, and I start to have these kinds of thoughts, it's a bit like having a hole in the boat. At that point, souls will share, it's a challenge to change the thoughts. What do I need to do?
Like since morning, there's one song just going on my head since the morning I just got up. Like, think you're like, there's a Baba song, right? Bindu bano, bindu bankar Baba ko yaad karo, kind of, right? So it's kind of consider of yourself to be a soul and put full stop to everything and remember the Almighty, right? So there is no other way. And for me, I must say that for any situation, drama's knowledge is the best remedy. It helps me to get over anything and everything. Application of drama's knowledge, that is so wonderful. So wonderful.
It does help us to stop, but souls will still report, I know that's going to help me. I know that's what I'm supposed to do. But when I'm in the thick of it, I can't do it. When I'm really tangled up, I can't do it. So what to do?
I just have to make myself powerful so
We're
that
back
I can
to control yourself.
Yeah. It's just it just shows the lack of power, right? I know things, but I mean I can't do it. So meaning like I don't have power to exercise that that knowledge. So
definitely. There's one thing that I felt it this morning, listening to the sharing. I experienced it when I was trying to build stamina, is that one really has to be proactive. I can't wait until I have a hole in the boat to try and figure out how to stop the leak. And so I always say, when the times are good, really take advantage of them. Really take advantage of them. But this idea that I need to have a discipline. Oh, we have another. Treat your mind just like a child. Either switch it with something more favorable or quieten it politely. I like that, Neelu. Yes, distract it with something else. Absolutely. And these are very good methods. But I've always felt, I found intriguing this morning when souls started to ask questions. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? And what I had felt and been aware of, and some may or may not, I don't know, but I know that the soul who is sharing has expressed on many occasions that they have a discipline of practicing very powerful spiritual practices over a long period of time. They don't wait until there's a crisis. They have this, they have been trained. This is spiritual training. They're trained. That's the only way I know that when I come back from being away for a while, every day I'm on that treadmill, not waiting until I'm in a class and I'll just die. But really, I know I have to do this. I have to have this practice. I have to have this practice to be able to have the power to switch gears in the midst of a crisis does require power. And the only way is if I've been building up over a long period of time. This is one of the phrases that we have in our spiritual study, over a long period of time. And I often wonder if we say it and we repeat it, but again, am I doing it? Over a long period of time. It's such a powerful phrase. It's quite ironic. I'm trying to build endurance so that I can keep going over a long period. And in order to have that, I need to be doing some training over a long period of time. that no matter what happens, and I know I've heard athletes share, it's really quite remarkable. And it does involve deep love. They love what they're doing. But I hear them share that they just have this, they don't even question it. There's no room for question in their mind, that they just, during off season, they have a training practice. Doesn't matter how they feel, training practice. So that when the season hits, they're ready to roll. And that off-season training is so critical, and so not just when there is the game or the challenge or the adversity, but I need to have this over a long period of time so that that power is there. And so I've just noticed for myself during this time, again, so much revealed to the self, that really I've had to kind of put some systems into place, if you will, some internal rules of engagement and some training. And we're lucky that with this study, we do have a daily schedule, and I deeply appreciate it. I was hearing the other day that it was quite sweet sharing that some people now, they just kind of stay in their PJs all day. But with the study, it's like I get up, shower, get dressed. I'm sitting in morning meditation every day, and I'm very thankful that there is that schedule that already kind of gets me energized and active. Very, very thankful. So this was already in place, but one thing that I've been doing a lot internally, yes, focusing on this very, very deep, eternal sense of myself as a soul as much as possible. I remember, yesterday was in a lineup, and there's lines, these distance lines everywhere. And as I'm sitting there, I'm just practicing wherever I can. I'm practicing. So that's, of course, there. But one thing I've really had to be firm with about myself, not violent. I like the politely that Neela was said, aware of the consequences, is thinking less. This has been like one of my big rules, is think. I just have no interest in leakage. I don't care how much it tries to pull me. This happened and they did that and this, whatever. I just have no interest. That is not what I'm into. It's like I can't afford it. It's just thinking less. And yes, obviously switching the quality of thoughts, always saying, if I do find myself looking at something else or someone else, kind of this feeling of, and what are you doing? And not in a harsh way, but if I'm looking at someone saying, oh, they should be blah, 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 like, are you blah, 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 blah? So they should be more patient. Are you more patient? so I'm kind of looking at, kind of finding ways to just think less extroversion, less expectation. And really, I was so touched. One of our seniors goes by the name of Asha Didi. I only caught like a 2-second nanobite of her class. It was a while ago. And she was sharing, and she was trained with many of the original students, and they received a lot of love, but also a lot of correction, a lot of discipline. They received a lot of skills on how to control themselves, how to manage their energy, which I think was really such a blessing for them. Some would say, oh, it's discipline. It's like, no, they were taught how to manage themselves, which is a great gift to receive. So that was her history, is getting signals and corrections, a lot of support in how to manage the self. But she said, these days, and I've heard other seniors say this as well, that, oh, sorry. Okay, we'll come to that, Hema. Yeah. That these days, what she's finding is sometimes, if she sees someone really causing distress for themselves by the way that they're behaving or maybe thinking, she might give a signal, and of course, good wishes, but really just goes back to creating her own powerful stage, knowing that's the best way to benefit, but only there's really no room anymore to get too tangled up in a lot of thoughts about things outside. And so to end, Hema talked about vibrational distancing. So there's physical distancing, and this seems to be very uppermost in the minds of many spiritual students. And I do think, excuse me, that sometimes we can feel off or irritable and not realize that we might have been affected by the atmosphere and we're attributing it to other things. So yeah, we need to really practice vibrational protection to maintain our energy, protect our energy. And of course, the best way, we wear a mask and PPE, personal protection equipment, in a physical sense. So what's my PPE spiritually? Of course, there is attitude and perception, but this is where we really also call on our connection to the Supreme Soul. Because if I am sort of have the habit already of kind of going out there to get stuff, going out there for validation or for reassurance or for attainments. If I already have that habit, it's going to be really challenging to stay vibrationally protected, because I just, we see that with the situation now that souls just can't stop going outside. They're used to going outside to get stuff and to feel okay and to connect with people. They just can't stop going outside. And so they're really being influenced. This is the physical example. But spiritually, we often have a deep habit of going outside, spiritually speaking, that I go out there, I need reassurance from out there, I need love from out there, I need connection from out there, I need approval from out there, I need stuff from out there, very subtle stuff that feeds the soul. I'm used to getting it out there. This is called extroversion. So it's going to be very difficult to not be influenced if I'm always, or affected if I'm always going out there. So I have to sort of develop a different place to go shopping for spiritual stuff, a different outlet. It turns out to be an inlet. So rather than extroversion going out for these spiritual, these invisible attainments, I need to start to find a safe place to shop. And this is where the Supreme Soul, God, comes into the picture, is it's starting to draw me inwards, and we say upwards. If I can start to get what I need from the Supreme Soul, that sense of connection, assurance, relationship, love, approval, if I can learn to get that from that soul, then I won't go outside. And it doesn't mean I'm disconnecting from people or not at all, right? It means that I am developing that source of attainment from a very safe space. And the odds are pretty high that I will start to share it, that it will start to go out to others, and I will not be dependent on the outside, that extroversion, to feel okay. And I think that's the number one thing that's affecting souls, is that these very invisible avenues of feeling okay are being cut off. It was quite fascinating that very high on the list was these aesthetic businesses, the hairdressing, the tattoo. It's really fascinating, actually, that these are places, the pedicure, that these are things that souls were very, very concerned not having access to. And what need are they fulfilling in the soul? I mean, what need is there to get, say, a tattoo at this time? And when am I at a spiritual level? There might be some physical reason, but at a spiritual level, what is that fulfilling in me? And is it possible for that to be fulfilled spiritually rather than trying to get it physically. Because if that's ever cut off, then I start to again lose steam. So, in general, finding it very thought provoking at this time how to keep myself in that upward spiral, how to manage my energy, how to take this time to look at myself and see what's going on. Where is there leakage? What practices can I put in place or programs can I put in place over a long period of time? This is to me, the opportunity in order to build that stamina that I think will be demanded more and more, that spiritual stamina. So we're going to end there because I'm looking at the time. But if anyone wants to share anything, have a last word before we reflect.
So from your own pulse of wisdom, Sister Judy, you said whenever your mind goes out or goes on base thoughts, just tell yourself, no, that's it. You can't afford doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing. There was so many interesting facets in the conversation I had with the soul this morning, and one of them was around food. And they were saying that somehow they found they were just losing their taste for certain foods. They just had no interest. And that's something that I was finding around your question, that when these thoughts that maybe they might have been a habit before, so they would come just out of habit. But the moment my mind tasted them, it was like, ugh, that's not tasty anymore. Like it just does nothing for me in terms of where I'm trying to go, especially. It just doesn't do any. So it might have come out of habit, but I just don't want to chew on it because it just has no taste. I want to eat something else. So it's a replacement, but it's not a violent kind of replacement. I don't feel like I'm being violent with the mind. The mind literally says, that's not very tasty anymore. Have you got something else I can eat? And so my job is to come up with the something else for the mind. But the mind's very cooperative because it's saying that just doesn't taste good anymore. I don't like, but I have to come up with a replacement. It wants something else. So again, I have to be proactive. Do I have some other stuff in my cupboards, in my inner cupboards to give it? Because it's just kind of sitting there waiting for some other thought. So yeah, that's really important. Not just, so it's not violent, but I do have to be ready, right? I do have to have a stock of other stuff to think about. And my favorite is to always go back and revise, what am I doing this all for? I really like the taste of self-respect. I really like the taste of personal dignity. My mind is my inner kingdom and it likes the feeling of those things. So when I notice there's thoughts that aren't like that, they might be very deep, very addictive, very, deep habits, but the mind is going, that doesn't taste very good. Can you give me something else? And so I have to make sure I have a stock and revising this idea of what is self-respect, what is personal dignity, and making my mind chew on those things. This is what I've been experimenting with. But it's a really good point, Raj. And this diet switch, maybe that can be a future conversation, but how to switch the diet, nutrition for the mind. I've been finding the activity of the mind has been very critical right now. Yeah. Anyone else before we go off and experiment? All right. Take a moment of reflection. I, the living being, I am a bit of a wonder. I am energy. I am life. I am a soul. So I can't be seen with the physical eyes, but I feel right now my own presence. I feel myself thinking and feeling. I exist. But I'm quite remarkable energy. These subtle activities that I can perform that the body can't do. And these subtle activities not only control what the body does, but also affect my quality of life, my happiness, my peace, and perhaps sometimes there is sorrow or upset. It all depends on these very subtle activities of I, the soul, the power of my mind, perhaps my greatest power. We call it the kingdom. That I can actually think my way into all sorts of different states. And yes, my mind is affected by other subtle capacities I have. But I always find it remarkable, even as I sit here now. I could start to think about situations outside, the uncertainty, the restrictions, the ambiguity, the confusion, and start to feel a little affected. Or I could think about the bigger picture, the understanding that everything is happening for a reason. Truth will prevail. The world needs to go through change. There's a reason this is all happening, and it's beneficial. This big picture thoughts that guide me to the smallest picture, back to thinking about the self, the state of the self, something that I can rely on is that self-care that I can control. What are my quality of thoughts? What are my perspectives, my attitudes? What is my connection, my experience of timeless aspects? This brings me into a different, completely different quality of thought, higher thinking that uplifts me. This is just one of my capacities, the mind. Maybe I can use this time to really get to know all of these subtle capacities I have and how to train them to operate at their best, developing spiritual stamina. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining. I am quickly cheating to see if I can see what's up next, what next week is. Might be flow. Let's see. Accessing. Yes, it's flow. So January 23rd, our topic is flow. Thank you, Harpinder. That was a beautiful heart. And big blessings and wave back to you, Nilu, and thumbs up to you, Raj. I think we're all coming to enjoy these reactions on Zoom. So pleasure to have you with us today, all of you, and perhaps we'll see you next weekend. We do have things going on before then, and the most interesting, or the one that comes soonest, I guess, is tomorrow evening, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. We have World Meditation Hour, very special this month. We're celebrating the legacy of Brahma Baba, the instrument to establish this worldwide spiritual organization. So the topic is a spiritual tower, exploring the essence of his life. And really, his vision was that we all reach that stage of being a spiritual tower in our own lives. So you're welcome to join. And if not, perhaps we'll see you during the week or next week. Emma, did you want
Om,
to? Yeah.
Om Shanti Judy Ben. Thank